Thank you so much for joining. I know weeks are very, very busy, and I can only imagine a Thursday at the end of the month is quite busy for everyone as well. So you're so very welcome this morning into our monthly masterclass series. So we run this once a month for 30 minutes. So lots to cover in 30 minutes. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're already part of the CRAOI community, I'm really delighted to have you all here. And today's session is called From Awareness to Action. And I want to set that up right from the start because awareness really is where most wellbeing conversations begin. But unfortunately, it can often be where a lot of them end as well. So we hear a statistic, we nod, we feel motivated, and then Monday happens or Thursday happens and life gets busy and work takes priority. We've all been there. So today is different. We're going to do things together. You're going to walk away, hopefully, with real usable tools, not just ideas. And I'm going to share some simple ways that you can bring this back to your team this week as well. So 30 minutes, let's make them count. I invite you now just quickly to take a moment to get comfortable. Feet on the floor, firmly planted if you're seated. If you're someone who wants to take this out on a walking chat, please be my guest. But just taking a nice deep inhalation through the nose and out through the nose as well, just feeling the shoulders relax and just taking a second to arrive here and just to feel a little bit more grounded. You might have come from a very busy morning, a busy week. So just taking a moment here to settle in. And as we settle in, for those of you who are new and that I haven't met before, my name is Clodagh. I am the founder of CRAOI, which sounds like the Irish word for heart. It's a workplace wellbeing solution. We have a mobile app that rewards employees for every positive action that they take by rewarding them with CRAOI hearts in their app, and they use them then to grow their virtual garden. And we focus on three pillars. So it's individual wellbeing, social wellbeing, and planet wellbeing, all brought together under the one ecosystem. I'm a certified health and wellness coach, and I am trained in Ashtanga, Hatha, Yin, and restorative yoga. So I teach yoga classes weekly here in Cork City on a Tuesday evening, and then I host corporate and group retreats as well. So I just hosted a gorgeous afternoon day retreat in Ballymaloe at the weekend, all around our nervous system. It was called Back to Me. So we host a series of these Back to Me retreats. And I specialize, I guess, in two areas that I'm really passionate about. It would be nervous system regulation and behavior change. So the thing is that most of us know what we should be doing for our well-being. It's not a lack of knowledge. There's so much information out there. So the gap is not the knowledge. The gap is really between knowing and actually doing. And that's what today was really about. I also co-host a podcast called the Natural High Life podcast. It's actually only launching on Monday. But this podcast is about my own journey with sobriety. So I decided to give up alcohol over a year ago. And each week, myself and my co-host, we pick a feel-good practice and try it for real and then report back honestly. So we invite listeners to join in. So it could be something like gratitude, breath work, social connection, rest. We share the science and the stories and the bits that went sideways. So trying to bring a bit of humor to it as well. So if anybody wants to listen, you can get that on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you can join along in the weekly natural highs that we're doing. So with all of this, I'm just trying to, I suppose, share that I have spent over 20 years working in both the wellness and the corporate industries. And I have sat in the rooms where well-being is discussed as that nice to have. And I have seen what happens when organizations stop treating it that way and really actually introduce it into the workplace in a way that it can be actionable and impactful. So I'm really glad you're here to join me this morning. Hopefully you all enjoyed National Workplace Wellbeing Day yesterday, which is kind of supercharged by IBEC. I know that their focus was on belonging and shining a spotlight on the theme of belonging. So we know that when we foster connections in the workplace and make space for activities that celebrate our community and our culture, we know that we see the huge benefits from this right across teams, and organizations can thrive. So it's great that there's a spotlight being shone on the theme of belonging and connection in the workplace, but we need to just take a little step back as well and understand, why is connection and belonging so important in the workplace in the first place? Anything that's important in our societies are going to be important in the workplace, and we have to keep our finger on the pulse. If we're in people management roles, HR roles, leadership roles, what's happening in society is also happening in our workplaces. And loneliness has quietly become one of the defining health challenges of our time. So according to the World Health Organization, social isolation is now recognized as a major risk factor for both our mental and physical health. It's linked to stress, inflammation, cardiovascular disease, even reduced life expectancy. So actually research shows that loneliness is as lethal as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And I think that statistic is extremely scary. And I think that people are far more lonely than we talk about it. I know myself, I've gone through periods of isolation and loneliness, and there's a little bit of a shame when you say that you feel lonely or you don't have someone that you feel you can connect with. On the flip side, when we do feel like we have a good community, whether it be in the workplace, with our family, with our friends, we feel so much happier. Social connections are actually the strongest predictor of life satisfaction. And I don't know if you've heard of the Harvard study of adult development, but that is the world's longest running study on adult happiness. So they've been running that since 1938, I believe. And they have found one simple truth, that good relationships keep us happier, healthier, and help us to live longer. It's not wealth, it's not fame, it's not success, it is connection with others. So in a workplace setting, we've never been more connected digitally. I mean, look at us right now being able to join from all different corners and be able to be brought together. But so many teams feel more disconnected than ever. And today's employees aren't just disengaged, they are actively disconnecting from their colleagues, their managers. And we can see the signs everywhere. We're seeing declining engagement, lower productivity, more people than ever seeking new roles, and increasing isolation and burnout as well. So Gallup calls this the great detachment, and they estimate it costs trillions of dollars every year through lost productivity. So there's a lot to be said about shining a spotlight on belonging and connection, and looking at ways to connect more with people in the workplace is key to this. Now, we hosted a dedicated session on this topic 2 months ago, and I'll share the link in the follow-up email with everyone. It's a 30-minute session. You can catch it. I think I have it on YouTube. We also have a bit of a cheat sheet of how to build connection and belonging at the workplace. So 15 expert curated tips and ideas on how to get started. And I'll make sure to share that with you as well. But in the nature of the day that was in it yesterday, I felt compelled to share a little bit more around connection and belonging. But really, National Workplace Wellbeing Day is a great day on our calendars every year. And it's really what kind of encouraged us to look at what we're looking at today. So awareness campaigns are fantastic. However, a day, a week, a program on its own is not what helps to create sustainable, long-lasting change. And I think we all know that. So today we're looking at why one-off initiatives don't work. We'll do a live guided reset. I'll give you some practical tools, some ideas you can take to your team, and I'll hopefully leave you with some inspiration for the month ahead. So if we start with maybe a bit of an uncomfortable truth, you can either do a show of hands, or you can just drop into the chat, which I can see as well, monitoring as well. If you agree with this, just maybe dropping a yes in the chat. How many of you have been part of a wellbeing day or a mental health awareness session, or maybe even just a lunchtime talk that was so brilliant in the moment, but then afterwards nothing actually really changed? So I don't know if that's you or if you can relate to that. I know I've been to some amazing sessions in the workplace that in the moment I just felt so motivated, and there was really good information shared. So a lot of us have been to these workshops, these days, and it's not that the change doesn't happen because people don't care. It's not because the content wasn't good, but it's because awareness days, they create just that, a moment, and moments don't create habits. And there are 3 reasons for this. And these are quite important. So the first is that knowledge is not the same as behavior. Knowing that deep breathing, for example, reduces our cortisol levels does not mean that you're going to do it when you're stressed. You know that it's good, you know that it will help you. You're not always going to then just do it when you're stressed. Our nervous systems, and I'll talk more about our nervous systems in a minute, they need practices, everyday practices, not just information and not just once-offs. The second is that willpower is not just enough. You know, we think we'll try harder or we'll be more consistent. Willpower is very short-lived. And when we ask someone to kind of rely on their willpower, we're setting them up for failure. We're putting the onus on the individual, and we're kind of making it feel like it's their fault if they don't achieve. Like it's your fault if you don't go and do that breathing exercise now that I told you it's good for you because it lowers your cortisol levels. And then that's again making someone feel bad about themselves. Sustainable change doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from making the right behavior easier. And so if we have barriers or challenges in place that stop us from creating better ways of operating, stops us from allowing us to, practice healthier habits, of course we're going to fail. Of course it's not going to stick. So it's really about creating systems and processes and environments where people feel like they have the right tools at their disposal and that it's really easy for them to lean into these practices and tools and rituals. And I would say about that during their working day. So the third one is that environment matters. If your culture doesn't support well-being, if taking breaks in your workplace feels indulgent or you feel like someone is judging you for doing that, maybe if saying I'm struggling feels risky or it doesn't feel safe, then no individual tool will work. So obviously culture and how we make people feel and the systems that we have set up is key to being able to ensure that action continues. So what does work? Well, the science works. I love the science. I'm a bit of a science geek myself, but there are 3 evidence-based principles that I want to take from today, and I'll share this with you as well afterwards. And I'm not talking here about the vague wellness wisdom that's out there in the universe. This is rooted in neuroscience and behavioral change research. So the first one is Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together wire together. So neuroplasticity research tells us that consistent small actions done daily create lasting neural pathways. So one well-being session will create awareness, but it's the daily practice that creates change. So it's repetition that helps us to rewire our brain. And we know that when we look at habits and how we can introduce a new habit and then how long we kind of need to practice it to allow it to stick. So there is debate about this out there. Some people will say 21 days. Some people will say it takes as long as 66 days. I think it depends on the individual. And I also think it depends on the habit you're trying to introduce. If it's something that you're intrinsically motivated by already, if it's something that you know is already good for you and it's kind of a small habit that you're introducing, I think it takes a shorter time to get into a routine of having that into your daily practice. If it's a bigger habit, it's a behavioral change, it's something that you're really challenging yourself to do, absolutely believe it can take longer than that. So we need to be patient with ourselves. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's these small, consistent repetitions that help us to rewire our brain. The second one is BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits research from Stanford. These show that habits attached to existing routines are 3 times more sustainable than dramatic changes. So, for example, 2 minutes of breath work at your desk beats a once a year retreat. So, it's about starting ridiculously small and making it easy to say yes to the habit. So you might have heard of James Clear. He wrote the book Atomic Habits. And in this, he talks about habit stacking. Now, habit stacking is a really, really good tool. I'll share a little bit on this. In our first episode of our podcast coming Monday, we talk about practicing gratitude. And in this, we talk about the science behind it. And my co-host practices gratitude every day. She drinks a cup of coffee like most of us would every morning. Coffee or tea, most of us start our day with that ritual. So that's a habit that we already have ingrained in our practice. And she shared that whenever she has her tea or coffee, she takes out her gratitude journal, she writes her gratitudes, and she has stacked it onto that existing habit. And now it's become a fully fledged habit for her. So I robbed that. I said I'd try it, see if it actually was easier to do it that way, because I was struggling to show up every day in my gratitude practice. And lo and behold, stacking it onto my coffee, it's now become a thing that I do with that existing ritual. So there's lots of existing habits you have in your life that you can look at, and then you could see what could you stack on if there's something new that you want to introduce. And it just makes it a lot easier for you to remember and to integrate that habit then. And then the third one is your stress response is trainable. So our nervous system responds to practice. Breathwork, movement, and mindfulness, they all activate our parasympathetic nervous system. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about the nervous system in a minute. And when we activate our parasympathetic nervous system, we help to reduce our cortisol. A cortisol hormone is good for us. It is needed, but we don't want to be utilizing or having it active all the time. And when we reduce our cortisol, it helps to improve our focus and it changes how we feel in minutes. You don't need an hour. You just need a really good ritual or practice or habit that just takes a few moments. And I'm going to bring you now into a practice that we can do together so you can feel this. So it's not just me talking about the awareness of these practices, but it's actually taking action. So we're going to do this together. If your camera is on, great. You can, keep it on. You can turn it off, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Don't worry, I won't do anything too ridiculous. Nothing that makes you feel too silly. Although I think a bit of silliness is good in our adult lives. We can get a bit too serious. So you can do this standing or sitting. This is called the physiological sigh. You may be familiar, you may not be. Wherever you are, you can do this at your desk, on your phone, when you're sitting in a car, parked, obviously not driving. This just takes under 90 seconds and it's so, so effective. It's a technique, as I said, called the physiological sigh. It is a science-backed tool that you can use to reset your nervous system and bring yourself back to balance. And this is actually something your body already knows how to do. We actually do it naturally when we cry or right before we fall asleep. It's a built-in mechanism that helps us to release stress and restore equilibrium. And research from Stanford University and neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman, who you might be very familiar with, he has a podcast. This has shown that the physiological sigh is one of the fastest ways that we can calm our body and reduce stress. It's actually more effective than longer meditation sessions or slow breathing exercises. So it's a micro reset. I'm going to just explain now how we're going to do it and then we'll practice it together and it'll literally take less than a minute. So in a moment, I'll cue us together. But right now, what we're going to do is settle in, feet on the floor, and you soften your shoulders and jaws. What we will be doing then is taking a long inhale, filling our bellies through our nose if possible, allowing our lungs to completely fill. And when we get to the top of our breath, we're going to take 3 last sips. So 3 last little sips of air to fully expand our lungs. And then we're going to exhale it all through our mouth. And you could exhale it with a sigh or as if you're blowing out a candle. And we're going to do this 3 times together. So getting set up, again, standing or seated, just feeling the ground beneath you, supporting you. Arms can be resting on your lap. You can close down your eyes if you'd like to. You can keep them open. Inhale through the nose, belly filling, coming all the way to the top of your breath. Taking 3 last sips, sip, sip. And exhale fully through the mouth, as if you're blowing out a candle, allowing the shoulders to relax. So we're going to inhale again through the nose, belly rises, lungs fill. All the way to the top. Sip, sip, sip. And full exhale. As if you're blowing out a candle. Fully emptying your lungs. One last time, inhaling. And at the top, sip, sip, sip. And exhale. So that's the practice. And just taking a moment here just to see how you feel after this very, very short reset. And if this is your first time practicing it, it can feel a little bit ridiculous, the whole sip part and the exhale. But as you get more used to this practice, it can just be a tool that without even knowing it, you use it. I actually just used it before I jumped on this session, just to settle myself and kind of realize then, oh, I'm using the tool I'm sharing because it's become part of my daily ritual. So I'll share this with you and you can use this yourself at any stage. I'm just always checking in how you feel after using this practice. So I have mentioned the nervous system, but let me share a little bit more about this. I won't go into too much detail, but this is something that I've based my whole trainings, teachings, coaching, everything we do at CRAOI on. Learning about this has seriously changed how I show up in my own business day. And it has been a game changer for me because understanding this changes everything about how we lead, how we perform, how we interact and support with the people around us. So we all have a nervous system made up of 2 branches. So whereas the sympathetic nervous system, this activates our fight or flight response, and our parasympathetic nervous system, which activates our rest and digest state. And the first thing I want you to know is that both are good. We need both. So the sympathetic system keeps us sharp, it keeps us alert, it keeps us responsive. Parasympathetic restores us, repairs us, and brings us back to our best. The problem is not having a sympathetic nervous system. We need it. It minds us. If we put our hand on a hot stove, we take it away straight away. That's our nervous system responding in a milliseconds. So it really keeps us safe. However, in the modern work life, on average, a lot of humans are spending around 70% of their day in that fight or flight mode because of emails, notifications, deadlines, job requests. It's always on. It's very busy. And our body actually can't tell the difference between a physical threat and a full inbox. So it responds the same way every time. Our cortisol levels shoot up, our adrenaline shoots up, and our body's on high alert. And when our nervous system is in fight or flight, The prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain responsible for our rational thinking, our creativity, our problem solving, our decision making, this goes offline. So when our teammates are stressed and we're asking them to do more and we're asking more from them and we're putting them under more stress and pressure, it's not doing anyone any favors because no one's showing up with the right cognitive function and capabilities to do the job in the best way possible. So the good news is that you can train your nervous system through breath work, through movement, stillness. We can shift ourselves out of fight or flight and into a state where the whole system opens back up. Because we're overemphasizing the go, go, go every day and we're undervaluing rest and recovery. Rest and recovery is not the opposite to performance and productivity. It is the prerequisite. So if we rest and we recover, we can show up, we can perform better, and we can be more productive. So there's 6 tools here that will help to reduce stress, support energy, and help you to show up in work in a much more productive way. So there's a 2-minute breath work, for example, the physiological sigh that we did, or box breathing. This helps to reset cortisol in minutes, so it can be used before meetings. There's things like mindful micro breaks, connection moments in work. And I'll share this with you as well, so you have this to hand and you can go through this and maybe choosing one of these things that you can introduce into your day moving forward. Picking just one of these things and starting to do it every week, starting to action it. You're aware now of the benefits of all of these things that we can introduce. Can you now make a promise or a commitment to yourself to action one of these things and bring this into your week? So when we think about your team as well, the simplest thing you can do this week or starting tomorrow morning even is one of these. You could start your next team meeting with a 60-second breathing exercise. It might feel a bit silly at first, but actually it's a great icebreaker. And if we can allow our teams to come to a meeting in a more relaxed state, they're thinking more clearly, they're more creative, they're more focused. You're going to get a lot more from the meeting. I would introduce this and say to the team, how do you feel? Let's try this for 4 weeks in our weekly meeting, habit stacking it into something that's already in the day. Ask them how they feel after it. Maybe create a protected no meeting window in your day, in your team's day. 30 minutes, guard it. Or maybe an hour, maybe Friday afternoons, no meetings. Could you share one wellbeing tool per week in your team comms, encouraging them to try something new, like the physiological side that I'm going to share with you? Could you introduce that to them? Could you introduce walking one-on-ones where possible? We can actually connect so much better sometimes and think more clearly when we're walking. And can we check in with our colleagues and genuinely each day and maybe even trying to learn a little bit more about them on a more personal level? So there's lots of initiatives here. Again, I'll share this with you. And these are things that you can take away to share with your team. Or if you want to go into the new month ahead, there's 4 initiatives here that are also worth considering for May. So May Wellbeing Initiatives, a 30-day wellbeing challenge where your team does one small action daily and shares it, building culture through your consistent habits. So everyone can choose something that feels good for them, share what it is, and all of a sudden you'll probably all try to start using each other's, and maybe someone can lead one thing in each team meeting. You could do lunch and learn series. You can do compassionate manager training. Nature and movement weeks can be really, really effective. Encourage outdoor breaks, step challenges, lunchtime stretch sessions. If any of these resonate, obviously, if you'd like more support talking through them, just let me know. And these are things that we support with as well. So I want to kind of share this framework before we wrap up, because this is the shift that makes everything else possible. Step 1 is awareness. That's today. This is showing up and feeling more aware of certain tools, resets that can be introduced into your everyday workday. And then step 2 is the tools, taking one practice and doing it daily, just one. The science behind it is clear. Consistent small actions beat the dramatic change every time. So can you practice a skill, one daily habit that you can take into your working place? And then step 3 is culture. Can you bring something to your team now? You may not be the manager of your team, but everyone is a leader in their own right if you choose to be. And when we show up and lead by example, it creates a ripple effect outwardly. So if you can start practicing yourself and then share this with others, you're going to see a huge impact. So when you do maybe a breathing exercise at the start of a meeting, this will give everyone else permission to take their well-being seriously too. And I bet you people will start to say, oh, I actually do this practice. Oh, I actually tried that. This actually really works for me. Because everyone cares about their well-being and people want to feel happy and feel well. Step four is systems. Can you look at ways to embed well-being not just across policies in the workplace, but across leadership training, across people strategy? That's where lasting change lives. Can you make sure when new employees are onboarded from day one, there's systems in place that tell them, that signal to them and signal to their nervous system, you are safe here, you are welcome to show up as you are, and we invite you to prioritize your well-being on a daily basis in this environment, because it's those workplaces that people are so happy to be part of. They're the ones that people show up and perform and engage with. And they share that with others. You know, they're going to refer your workplace to friends. They're going to talk about the company in such a good way. I've seen it across the board. So the most powerful thing James Clear says in Atomic Habits, to reference his book again, is you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So I just say that again. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Again, for yourself individually and in the workplace, it's important to know that you set yourself a goal, and if you fail and you don't achieve it, you feel bad about yourself. I'm not able to do that. I didn't hit my goal. Are you looking at the systems and the environment around you? Are they supporting that goal, or are they helping you to take action? And if they're not, then it's not on you. It's just you don't have the right systems and processes in place. So pick one practice today, do it for 21 days, bring it to your team. That's how culture changes, one ordinary rainy Thursday at a time. So if anything has sparked something more, if you're thinking, we need to do more of this, or I want to bring this into my own organization, I'd love to hear from you. I'm always here to chat. We obviously have our workplace wellbeing solution, and something that we support employees with on a daily basis through positive behavioral change. We offer these monthly masterclasses. I'll be inviting you now to next month's in May. Lots of workshops that we do, and as I mentioned, I do coaching, retreats, all of those things. Lots going on. So if you ever want to learn a little bit more, do let me know. So I guess, yeah, before I kind of finish, thank you for showing up. I know 30 minutes is very quick, but I suppose it's still a chunk of time out of your day, but lots covered. Hopefully you feel a bit of a reset after the physiological sigh, and just remembering to choose one thing that you can integrate this week and this month ahead. You can share this kind of session with your colleagues as well, and join us again next month. I will just say wellbeing isn't a destination, it's a daily practice. I can vouch for that. I'd love to hear from anyone who'd like to talk a little bit more. So you can get me on hello@craoi.com directly. And yeah, even if it's just for a chat and a coffee, I'm always here to talk anything wellness and well-being. So thank you so much for joining. I'll stay on for another minute. I kind of, yeah, just bang on time. I'm sure lots of people need to jump, but I'll stay on for a minute or two if anyone wants to chat about anything. I'm here with my tea, and I'll stay.